Ramana Maharshi's teachings. In talks with Ramana Maharshi, Ramana has offered at least 25 references and examples regarding cinema screen and pictures seen on the cinema screen. I am presenting some of them here, leaving out those that are almost duplicates. When you identify yourself with the body, then only the forms and shapes are there. When you transcend your body, only the self will remain. It is like a cinema show. There is the light on the screen, and the shadows flitting across impress the audience as the enactment of some scene. Similarly also will it be if in the same play an audience also is shown. The seer, the scene, will then only be the screen. Apply it to yourself. You are the screen. The ego rises from the self. The ego has its accretions of thoughts which are displayed as the world. In reality, all these are nothing but the self. If you see the self, the same will be found to be all, everywhere and always. Nothing but the self exists. The Ajnani, one who does not realize the self, sees the Jnani, the knower of the self, as being active, and so is confused. The world is perceived by both, but their outlooks differ. Take the instance of the cinema. There are pictures moving on the screen. Go and hold them. What do you hold? It is only the screen. Let the pictures disappear. What remains over? The screen again. So also here. Even when the world appears, see to whom it appears. Hold the substratum of the I. After the substratum is held, what does it matter if the world appears or disappears? The Ajnani, ignorant, takes the world to be real, whereas the Jnani, the knower of the self, sees the world only as the manifestation of the self. Everyone sees only the self. The divine forms are only like bubbles in the ocean of reality, or like pictures moving on a screen. The sense of want, of pain, and so on arises only in the wakeful state. What is the change that has taken place? You're the same in both, but there is difference in happiness. Why? Because the mind has risen now. This mind rises after the I thought. The thought arises from consciousness. If one abides in it, one is always happy. The soul remains always uncontaminated. It is the substratum running through all these three states. Wakefulness passes off, I am. The dream state passes off, I am. The sleep state passes off, I am. They repeat themselves, and yet I am. They are like pictures moving on the screen in a cinema show. The pictures do not affect the screen. Similarly also, I remain unaffected, although these states pass off. There is fire on the screen in a cinema show. Does it burn the screen? There is a cascade of water in a cinema show. Does it wet the screen? There are tools used in the cinema show. Do they damage the screen? That is why it is said that the self is achedyoyam, unbreakable, adahyoyam, cannot be burnt, akledyoyam, cannot be drenched, and so on. Fire, water, and so on are phenomena on the screen of Brahman, the self, and they do not affect the self. A figure on the screen in the cinema show appears to watch the whole world. What is the reality behind the subject and the object in the same show? An illusory being watches an illusory world. You, the individual, and the world are as real as the cinema figure and the cinema world. There are scenes floating on the screen in a cinema show. Fire appears to burn buildings to ashes. Water seems to wreck vessels. But the screen on which the pictures are projected remains unscorched and dry. Why? Because the pictures are unreal and the screen is real. Again, reflections pass through a mirror, but the mirror is not in any way affected by the quality or quantity of the reflections on it. So, the world is a phenomenon on the single reality, which is not affected in any manner. Reality is only one. So many pictures pass over the cinema screen. Fire burns away everything. Water drenches all. But the screen remains unaffected. The scenes are only phenomena which pass away, leaving the screen as it was. Similarly, the world phenomena simply pass on before the jnani, the knower of the real self, leaving him unaffected. You do not go anywhere away from the presence as you imagine. The presence is everywhere. The body moves from place to place, yet it does not leave the one presence. So, no one can be out of sight of the Supreme Presence. Since you identify one body with Sri Bhagavan and another body with yourself, you find two separate entities and speak of going away from the Divine Presence. Wherever you may be, you cannot leave me. To illustrate this, the pictures move on the screen in a cinema show. But does the screen itself move? No. The presence is the screen. The individuals are the pictures. The individuals may move, but not the self. Who is this I? It cannot be the body nor the mind. This I is the one who experiences the waking, dream, and sleep states. The three states are changes which do not affect the individual. The experiences are like pictures passing on a screen in the cinema. The appearance and disappearance of the pictures do not affect the screen. So also, the three states alternate with one another, leaving the self unaffected. Is the cinema screen affected by a scene of fire burning or sea rising, so it is with the self. The waking and the dream states are creations of the mind, so the self covers all. To know that the self remains happy in its perfection is self-realization. Its use lies in the realization of perfection and thus of happiness. There is a fixed state. Sleep, dream, and waking states are mere movements in it. They are like pictures moving on the screen in a cinema show. Everyone sees the screen as well as the pictures, but ignores the screen and takes in the pictures alone. However, the jnani, self-realized sage, considers only the screen and not the pictures. The pictures certainly move on the screen, yet they do not affect it. The screen itself does not move but remains stationary. Similarly, a person travels in a train and thinks that he moves. Really speaking, he sits and reposes in his seat, and it is the train which is moving fast. However, the person superimposes the motion of the train on himself because he has identified himself with the body. He says, I have passed one station, now another, yet another, and so on. But a little consideration will show that he sits unmoved, and the stations run past him. But that does not prevent him from saying that he has traveled all the way, as if he exerted himself to move every foot of the way. You do not leave one place for another. You are always stationary. The scenes go past you. Even from the ordinary point of view, you sit in your cabin and the ship sails, but you do not move. We see a picture of a man running several miles and rushing towards us on the screen. But the screen does not move. It is the picture that moves on and away. The jnani, self-realized sage, is fully aware that the true state of being remains fixed and stationary, and that all actions go on around him. His nature does not change, and his state is not affected in the least. He looks on everything with unconcern and remains blissful himself. You are an unchanging and continuous being who remains in all these states which are constantly changing and therefore transient, but you are always there. It follows that these fleeting objects are mere phenomena which appear on your being like pictures which move across a cinema screen. The screen does not move when the pictures move. Similarly, you do not move from where you are even when the body leaves the home and mixes in society. Your body, the society, the forest, and the ways leading out of the forest are all in you. You are not in them. You are the body also, but not this body only. If you remain as your pure self, the body and its movements need not affect you. Because you identify yourself with the body, you see the world around you and say that the waking state is filled with beautiful and interesting things. The sleep state appears dull because you were not there as an individual, and therefore these things were not. But what is the fact? There is the continuity of being in all the three states, but no continuity of the individual and the objects. That which is continuous is also enduring, permanent. That which is discontinuous is transitory. Therefore, the state of being is permanent, and the body and the world are not. They are fleeting phenomena passing on the cinema screen of being consciousness, which is eternal and stationary.